Hey guys, this is Thomas over here, nursemoneytalk.com, and in this video, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to answer a question that I got from you guys that has to do with working multiple shifts in a row. And the question was actually from Iman, and it was, I work 7 days, 12-hour shifts. Do I have any advice? Actually, I do have some advice on this because I have worked like crazy amount of shifts in a row before. Now, before I get into that, if you're not already subscribed, make sure to hit that subscribe button on this channel. I talk about all things related to nursing student, and of course, nurse life. Let's go ahead and get started with this. It's kind of interesting that this question came up because I was actually having a conversation. It was me and one of the nurses, and it was actually one of the physicians had happened to be in there during that time, and I said something to the effect of, because right now, the backstory is that I'm currently working in GI and I'm working Monday through Friday 8 hour shifts, which I really do not like. I do not like working 8 hour, kind of like working the 8 hour grind and, 5 days a week. I did not quite understand why people hated Mondays with a passion so much and why people want to throw parties when Friday came through until I started working, because before working 12 or 16-hour shifts, that's just not really a thing. Now, I had said to the effect of like, because there was at one point where like I worked, I think the most I've ever worked, I think it was like 7 or 8. When I was doing consistently, I think I want to say it was like 7 or 8 12-hour shifts, and I would do that in like a 9, 10 day stretch. Um, and I remember I said, I don't think hospitals should let you do this, but I would do it in a heartbeat. Um, I would do it in a heartbeat if I had the option. Now, and part of the thing that comes with working those many shifts in a row is that it gets tiring. I mean, it is painfully tiring because, with this situation, and Iman, I'm actually not sure if you're a nurse or a healthcare provider, but regardless of what your particular situation is, I think this speaks for anybody who works a 12-hour shift, because it doesn't end up being just 12-hour shifts more likely than not. So if you think in a 24-hour day, um, a 12-hour shift, you would ideally have, another 12 hours to be able to chill out and rest. Well, let's just call for what it is. 12 easily becomes like 13 or 14 hours. And then if you throw in the time of commute and everything else, like it ends up, and then especially like if you have to, like, if you're like me, you can't just walk right in and go to sleep immediately. You kind of almost need like almost kind of like a cool down phase, probably mess around either on social media, watch a little bit of TV or whatever, decompress. That's the word I'm looking for before actually going to bed. One of the things you'll quickly realize is that you're, it's never quite, a 12-hour time that you're going to have to do something else. And so, what I have realized working those many shifts is that there's two components to, and this is where and this is where my advice comes in. There's two components that I think you really need to look at when it comes to being able to manage working those many hours back to back to back. And so, the first, I mean, and those two components have to do with what you do at work versus what you do at home. Now, to start off with work, what you do at work, you really need to look at being efficient. Uh, Being efficient, don't put things off. And so so if in the situation of, I'll speak, in the situation of a nurse. So like, if you know that things need to be done, medication needs to be met, like certain procedures or things like maybe dressing changes, whatever stuff, tasks that need to be done, you need to make a schedule and you need to be efficient at getting them done, because you don't want those being backed up all the way to the very end, and you also don't want to save all your charting till the very end, because then that just makes things differently. You want things to be done, as your day, as your day goes along, because your biggest issue will be getting the heck out of there as quickly as possible so you can commute back home and be able to chill out and hopefully get enough sleep before you have to turn around and do the same thing again for multiple times in a row. The other thing you need to keep in mind is about being proactive as well. So if you know that a potential issue could happen, or there's a risk of something bad happening, well, stop it. Prevent that from happening, because that creates more work, which goes back into don't create more work for yourself, because the goal is, once again, get the heck out of there as in a timely fashion as possible, so you can get back home and get ready for the next shift, because you're already going to have to, especially if you work in a hospital setting and there's another shift that's going to come and relieve you, you're already going to have to be dealing with them hopefully showing up on time. You don't want to compound it. The next thing you're going to have to look at is the home factor, right? So the home factor being that, the key thing being that you need to assume that you won't really have a life during this stretch. And I know this typical stretch. And so the typical stretch, for those of y'all, if you're watching this that you don't know, it's usually more of a, generally it would be like a 6 on, 8 off. In this situation, probably working the extra 7, because probably have to get at least 80 hours in like a 2 week, in a 2 week pay period. So they're probably doing 7 on, 7 off, which, you're probably, so if you guys are trying to get a visual on it, if you look at, your schedule starts on a Sunday, and then ends on the 2 weeks on a Saturday. So you're probably working a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of the beginning following week to try to get in all your hours in the pay period. And so if that's what you're doing, you have a long stretch where you can go on vacation or do whatever you need to do. So it's best, in my opinion, to assume that you won't really have much of a life in this. Just to clarify, not saying you can't do other things, but you need to keep in mind that you want to at least try to get rest. Because I've run this schedule before without getting a lot of sleep. It sucks. It really, really sucks, especially if you're doing things where, like, if you're in healthcare where, you're dealing with people's lives. If you're working with heavy machinery of sorts, construction, or whatever the case may be, like, you need to be on alert. You need to be on your A game. So you need to prioritize getting sleep and getting rest. And so that then leads into, you need to try to be efficient when you're home. And so it helps if you try to meal plan. It helps if you kind of like have an idea of what you're going to do at home to try to make things efficient. So that does take some planning. It really helps if you have like a routine in place. If you have a significant other, married partner, have kids or whatnot, like, you kind of need to navigate and know ahead of time what that is going to look like. So knowing ahead of time what that looks like will make things a whole lot easier. The final tip, and this is probably the most important one, and if you listen to nothing else that I say in this video, get this one. You need to know when you need to change jobs, change schedules, whatever. This is a brutal schedule. It is. Like, if you've never worked this before, if you're watching this and you've never worked this before, like, it's a brutal schedule, and to run it repeatedly. And there's no shame if for whatever reason it's not working out. And once again, if you work in healthcare or a job where people's lives are in danger, or people's lives could be affected if you're not on your A game, or you're doing something heavy machinery, heavy construction, where the consequences of not being your A game is people's lives, or very catastrophic in terms of the dollar amount of damage. Like, there's no shame, absolutely no shame in, this isn't working, I need to figure out what all else I can do that might work better for me, or for me, for myself, for my family, whatever, whatever the case may be. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, would appreciate the thumbs up and the subscribe. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll catch you very soon in that next video.